All right, well, we're back for another Daily Stew. Thanks for joining us at the Right Stew podcast. I think we're going to put the final touches on rivalry weekend, and we're going to talk about flag planting season. A lot of flag planting going on over this past weekend, and for rivalry, I'm wearing a special. I got my old Garner Trojans. It's a lot tighter than it used to be.
It looks good. Looks good.
But shout out to the Garner Trojans. Our big rival during my days was Cary High School. And if Cary High School had tried, I didn't play football, but if they tried to do something like that on the baseball field or basketball court, I'm pretty sure I would have done something similar. Not been real happy about it. Brian, had you been at NC State and Carolina come and try to plant a flag on the mound or something, what happens in your mind? Where do you go?
I can't imagine. I just think it's really one of those things, and maybe it's culturally, right? We see a lot more when somebody does something good. It's very much look at me, 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 me. And the day of, kind of winning with class and losing with class, but especially winning with class, seems to be a little bit behind us, and I hate it, right? I mean, it's not what I would want. Obviously, NC State did it at UNC's football field. They were part of the problem. I'm not a huge fan. I think culturally, I don't want to be the guy that says, hey, get off my lawn. But I do feel like it is there's something being lost from a sportsmanship standpoint of, hey, you win with class, lose with class, right? It's okay to be competitive and want to beat your opponent, especially your rival. It's something else when you got to go out there and just completely show them up. And heck, a lot of those guys know each other, have relationships outside of this. And again, I love this.
I imagine they were probably all being recruited by Ohio State and Michigan, and so a lot of the same schools. So let's start at the biggest one, obviously, kind of the first one of the day, the Ohio State and Michigan one. That one got pretty. And the kind of the dumb thing about it is a lot of these are like artificial turf, so you can't even put a flag in the ground.
No, so it's not a whole lot of forethought there. Otherwise, you'd have a little stand, something you could do that you see it like inside buildings when you got flags. So not a whole lot of forethought there. It was weird how it seemed like there's a lot of people who thought this was a good idea yesterday. Obviously, it's an indication of away teams winning. But yeah, man, it's a bad idea. And like you said, it's turf. It's hey, go to your fans, wave the flag. I'm good with that. Let's not try to to plant the flag in the field.
But I think it shows how much it does mean to both schools, because there was Ohio State, Michigan had the big one. Florida State had the one, which you wouldn't think that was a rivalry this year with Florida State being so bad. You mentioned University of North Carolina and NC State. Again, all road teams won. For the most part, close games. Then Arizona State and Arizona had one. All the road teams won. And they go out and do something like that. And I remember, I think back to like T.O. way back, and I remember when he ran and stood in the middle of the star and he got beat up.
Yeah, he got blasted by a Cowboys player. Yeah, I think it's again, that was kind of a one-off deal, and I think even at that time, people was like, "What is T.O. doing?" Right? Yeah. I think it's just a little bit of a cultural shift to where some of the sportsmanship is gone. Right? Again, wanting to win, but doing it a certain way or doing it the right way. So I don't know. I saw where like. I think both schools were fined $100,000.
Yeah, that happened today. Yeah.
So you got that. I don't know what's going to happen through NC State, UNC. I just think, I don't know. I used to would have said like you got to, winning programs don't do that. It was what I used to would have said because they know how to win. Obviously, Michigan had a very tough year and figured out a way to beat their rival. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Obviously, I think it starts with it's a little bit culture, right? And it's not necessarily football culture. I think it's all sports culture. Like I said, in baseball and basketball and all these sports, anytime somebody individually does something remotely good, it's, hey, look at me, pat me on the chest, point up to, pretend God or point up to God, whatever, right? And so I'm not sure what you're pointing at whenever it's, that feels kind of the opposite of what some of those messages are biblically. But anyway, it's a interesting culture. I don't love it. But I'll tell you this, I asked my daughter about it, who's going to go play Division I lacrosse, and what she thought, and this is probably poor parenting on my part, but she's like, hey, that was, the home team should have figured out a way to win. That's their fault for not stopping them from winning, which means I've raised her poorly, obviously.
Well,
But
let's ask her. Let's ask. I don't know. So she's going to Coastal Carolina. Really exciting. I don't know who Coastal Carolina's rival is,
I
in
don't know
any
either,
sport,
right?
realistically. But let's ask her again in 3-4 years if main opponent, main rival does that. Let's see how she feels then, or even high school. Like maybe if you pose the question a little different, she might have a different reaction.
Yeah.
Because I've seen her; she's pretty fiery.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
So that's maybe that answer changes in a couple years. Here's the other crazy thing that happened. So we were watching the Ohio State Michigan game, and you saw the police really involved out there, and then pepper spray. I've never seen pepper spray being busted out in an in the game melee sort of thing. I've never been pepper sprayed. I've heard it's miserable and terrible, and just being around it. Have you ever been pepper sprayed, Brian?
The only time, maybe when I was a kid, it used to be kind of used as a defense thing. And my mom, I think, had one on her key ring, and I may have tested that one time in an enclosed area, and it got me pretty good.
So wait, did you just messing around with it, or did you shoot yourself in the face?
Totally messing around. I think I may have been even the car and just sprayed a little bit, and and mom came out and saw me and said, "What are you doing? Your eyes are red." I was like, I sprayed this. She's like, "You're not very smart," and I'm like, "I agree." But I was super young. I guess sometimes you would see it maybe when teams used to try to, or fans would try to rush the field. You would see it.
Yeah, maybe fans, but never on players. Maybe on fans, but never players.
Yeah, so I think just a bad mojo. Any way you look at it, Paulie. I mean, it's again, I think it's it's one of those things where there's a right way to win, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at least from my, we're about the same age, mid-40s. You can really want to beat a team and not have to, after you beat them, just completely rub it in their face. I don't know.
I was watching the Clemson South Carolina game pretty closely yesterday. I'm a big Clemson fan, and that game was over, and it was South Carolina won at Clemson on a last second interception. Really great play by the defense. And the two coaches came out, shook hands, and that was it. I mean, they moved on, right? So I think some of that starts at the very top with your head coach. And I've met Dabo a couple times, and Dabo, first class, really just great dude, runs a great program. So I think some of it starts at the top. You take the lead, and you and I both being coaches as well. We try to do that with the coaches or the kids that we coach, right? We expect certain things of them, and if we see them getting out of line, we'll let them know. And again, you're dealing with in football, 118 to 22, and something like 26-year-old guys now, right? Because of the COVID year and super seniors, and so you're dealing with a lot more, right? Than
a lot of players, a lot of young coaches, and I think it's I'm not really blaming really anyone or any side. I would just think it's not. I don't think it's what we want to be about as a culture, right? I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think
you're right.
You just win. Hey, want to beat your rival, want to beat whoever you play, but when you're done, hey, you ain't got to shake hands. I know you're not a huge fan of shaking hands at the end.
Personally,
I don't know if that's the conversation tonight, but you're not a huge fan of that.
I hate the end of game handshake. The fake good game. It's one of my least favorite. It's such fake sportsmanship.
That's fair.
I've hated it forever. Since I was like in T-ball. I thought it was the dumbest thing. As a 5 and 6-year-old, I thought it was stupid. So COVID was awful. Right. One of the best things about COVID was we stopped doing the handshake at the end of the game, just kind of waved at each other and good job and parted ways. I think the end of game handshake, it creates more kind of animosity. I think it's opposite for me, at least being a competitor. It does the opposite, I think, of because especially in, like when I was playing basketball, like you were just out there,
you body people,
and I was kind of playing on the down, on the block. I'm down there roughing people up and getting beat up and stuff. Like, dude, I don't want to go out there and just give me a minute or two just to relax. And if I want to go see somebody, I'll go see somebody. But I hate the fake sportsmanship handshake. Maybe that's why I fell in love with baseball. 'Cause, baseball, you can high five your team in the middle of the field
Right.
and get on out of there, right?
Hey, so minor league ball, y'all shook hands at the end of a series, right, or no? Never did.
No,
Yeah,
no.
I'm trying to
If you
remember
wanted to
what we
see a guy,
did.
if you knew a guy, you
Right,
would
right,
talk to
right,
him
right.
either in BP or you would say, "Hey, let's go." Yeah, and
So
my
y'all never did. Never.
Denny's.
Obviously, in college baseball, you do, right? You win your first 2 or 3 games or your weekend series. You shake the hands at the end of the series. Is kind of the culture and kind of the tradition of it. But I don't disagree with you from the standpoint that it is fake. I do think it takes some self control, right? It's got to take a little maturity to go through and shake a line. But I'm not arguing with you that it's not sincere, right? Unless you got a boy or somebody you grew up with who's on the other team and you're like,
Yeah,
look, man. And even
yeah,
at
it's your
that
guy,
point,
whatever it is. Yeah,
I need a moment, right? Usually when I lose, I want to just leave immediately. But obviously,
well, they
yeah,
say
yeah. Hey,
good
I'll tell
sport,
you this.
bad sport. Eh.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Jordan would. I think I've heard Michael Jordan say, "Hey, if you show me a good, you show me like a good loser, I'll show you a loser." And so there's
Yeah,
something to that, but there's also on the flip side that hey, we can't be. I would have flipped out too. Somebody would have been planting flags that when I was playing any sport, right? And
yeah.
so it's really a bad scenario on both sides. And now you got social media that kind of weaves into all this
Yeah, that's a
stuff
big
too,
part of it too. Yeah, the socials
and
are all
even
over it.
social media guys are wanting to get like a little picture of you on the field waving the flag so they can tell their next
Well, that was the
guy.
first thing I did. I went to Twitter, X. I went to X and just in fact, literally within a couple minutes, found video of somebody just like right in the mix, and it was pretty wild.
Dude, it's silly, dude.
Yeah,
Uh, it's funny that so many teams did it, and maybe it's not odd. I would have to look at the stats as how many away teams win in those situations,
yeah.
especially underdogs. But it is funny that it seemed to be a kind of reoccurring theme this past
Yeah,
weekend,
I
which
think
is
it's gonna be one of those things. I think that the rules committee and that sort because there were some issues with fans storming the field a couple weeks ago,
yeah.
with kind of time left on the clock. I think there's gonna be some things that are discussed in rules committee meetings and with referees and officials that hey we can't let this happen. There's going to be different things that they do to avert those things from happening, right? Because nobody wants to get pepper sprayed in the face, and it's about it was interesting though because I think it was Gus Johnson on he was like, this is terrible, this is such an awful, oh what a meanwhile we are glued to the TV. My family's watching. We're like, man, I want to see more of this. Like so it reminded me. So when I was getting during the draft, I had people give me like these psychological evaluations because they
Oh
want to
yeah.
make sure you're not a nutball. And I remember one of the only questions I remember vividly was if you're walking down the street and you see on one side a man painting a picture and on the other side two kids fighting, which one are you going to stop and watch?
Oh,
And I was 17 years old. I would stop and watch the fight 100 out of 100 times. But I wrote on my test the man painting the picture or whatever it was because it's like I don't
I'm
want to
sure
think
they knew that was a lie.
yeah, they're like, oh, this guy's a liar. That's why the Twins didn't draft me. They're like, no,
Yeah, that's a lie.
this is
And
a
they're going to
liar of a
watch the
kid.
fight.
Yeah. So
But I mean, and it goes down a whole cultural another way, right? I mean, the reason the news puts bad news on is because that's
it
interesting.
sells papers. Yeah.
Sells papers, and so
Nobody sells papers. It gets clicks. It gets clicks. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah, 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 yeah. It gets clicks, and it is interesting though. But it's a culturally a no bueno. We'll
yeah.
see if it changes
Hey,
going
if you
forward.
lose, own. But again, it's tough. It's really tough because I know how much work those programs put. I know how much time they spend at the workout facility, and those guys are legitimately they're brothers, right? They bleed and sweat and cry and like everything together. And to see somebody come in and realistically disrespect your
Oh no, no, no!
school,
I
your
really don't
team,
have a
like
problem. I don't have a problem with the people defending it.
standing up for it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like the UNC guy who took the flag away and threw it into the stands,
yeah,
or whatever happened at Michigan or at Ohio State. I don't. I mean, I feel like as a competitor, it's okay to defend it in that
yeah.
situation. I'm really the guilty party is the people that were trying to start it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's okay to be excited, but planting the flag is the whole different level. Maybe it should or
It's a
shouldn't be,
lot, man.
Yeah, yeah, I have no problem. I mean, I'm going in and I'm getting pepper sprayed if I'm on Michigan and and they're planting flags.
I was doing this for fun when I was 5. Yeah.
Right. It's not
That's
that
funny.
bad. Cold water, get rid of it. Awesome. Thank you, brother.
Yeah. So, all right. So that wraps up rivalry week. We got some college football playoffs coming up, so we'll be discussing that and some other things. But thanks for listening. Make sure you subscribe. We're on Instagram, Right Stew Podcast. Make sure you follow us on Spotify, Apple Pods, iHeartRadio, anywhere you find podcasts. So we appreciate you guys out there listening, and look forward to bringing you more content here soon.
Go back.